Well, today we have a very, very legendary VIP individual joining us on HRUnite Convos for Connection. And it is somebody that I have throughout the course of a good chunk of my HR career have admired and will tell you that I have donned the HR or the leadership whisperer or the manager whisperer. And that is infamous, should need no introduction from me, Val Grubb. I am so happy to have you joining today. How is your day going?
You know what? It's getting better by the minute, Tina-Marie. I'm especially excited about being here. So really, I honored to be included. Like I know all the great work that you're doing with conferences and Disrupt HR, and like you're doing just all this amazing stuff. And so I was very honored to be included on your vlog. So I'm excited to be here. My day's getting better and better.
Well, I will say it's always a great day when we get to connect. And for those that have not experienced Val Grubb live, here's a plug for my MySherm people. Like, again, at some day we'll get her to take the stage in Grand Rapids. Hint, hint. I've been lobbying for a while. I just hope. But if not, Val does like buttered noodles and walks along the Cass River in July. So that could be happening as well. Just saying, we're going to put it out in the universe. But so thank you so much for being on Combos for Connection. And we do ask everybody that joins us two questions. And so one of the questions that we've asked is, Val, tell us your HR story. So what led you to be a steward of people?
My first experience with HR really happened when I was put in charge of leading people. And so they kind of put in charge of leading people for the first time. I was in my senior year for my engineering degree. I was going to what was then GMI in Flint, Michigan. It's now Kettering University in Flint, up by you. And I was co-op, it's a co-op school, and I was co-oping at Rolls-Royce in Indianapolis. And I was put in charge of the engineering co-op program when I was in my last year of college. And I had to partner with HR at that point, and it was really my first exposure. And I gotta admit, I didn't have the most positive impression of that of HR, of the folks that I worked with. But what I saw was the power that they wielded. And it said to me right then that that is something that I want to be involved with. I want to be in charge with, and that I want to be in charge of. And so many years later, when I left engineering, went into entertainment, I had the opportunity to lead my first HR group. And I jumped at the chance because that first impression of HR and just what they could do really, really stuck with me. And so I was head of operations when I helped to found IAC for Barry Diller, and that included being in charge of HR. And it's really been a love affair ever since, as I have such respect for what HR can do for companies. And I saw sort of bottom line, if you will, I saw leaders making decisions based on fear of lawsuits or policies instead of people. And I realized that really HR had the chance to be the voice that said, wait, let's focus on the people first. And that really shaped my career into making HR a business partner and not a hall monitor. And sort of coming from this place of yes, and how we help and being that strategic partner to lead companies, because you need the voice of the people at the table. And so, like I said, I mean, and this was, gosh, I'm telling you, what was I, 22? I don't know, something young. And it just really stuck with me then at just the power that that organization wielded, and that I always wanted to make sure to be a part of that, and that it was wielded for good, because there's so much that HR can do, and there's so much HR does do, but when it comes to strategy and leading companies, you need that voice, you need that HR voice at the table. And I figured that out at 22. And like I said, it's kind of been a bit of a love affair ever since. So,
Well, we are so fortunate that you did find that connection in, I'm going to say fairly early, because people first is,
right?
again, we're still trying to get people there to understand that if we put people at the forefront of decisions, we have the 4 Ps. People should be one of those 4 Ps in
Absolutely.
business. And
Yeah.
so that is one of the things that I think I have appreciated about your insight in blending operations, and getting us to think strategically is how do
Yeah.
we in HR insert us as part of that conversation in the how to, and that's been something that I think you have been an advocate and a voice for throughout your career, and we are all grateful for it, those that have benefited from that are
Well,
so
and I
grateful.
really like, I remember, I'll tell you, Tina-Marie, I remember the first time I was going after like my first supervisory role. Like I was supervising the engineering co-op program, but remember, they're co-ops, they're going out to work for other people. This was, I'm now managing people. And I asked my boss at the time, I'm like, hey, I think I want to apply for this position. What are your thoughts on that? And he's like, well, I just don't think you're just not quite ready, Val. And I'm like, all right, totally cool. Tell me what I need to do. Like, I'm in, I'll do what I need to do in order to lead people at the first time. And he's like, well, I can't put my finger on it, but I'll know when you do it and when you're ready. And I thought, you have no clue what I need to do in order to be a people leader. And I got out from underneath him as quick as possible. And I went and talked to HR and said, what do I need to do? I need to work for somebody who can help me get to the point of being a leader and leading people. And that was HR that they're the ones who helped me move into working for a manager that was a true people leader. And got me steered on a path. And I ended up being one of the fastest women to move into no code, in the coding system, the layering system that Rolls-Royce had. And that was because of HR and of really seeing when you've got somebody who's so excited and them grabbing my hand and being just as excited as I was and helping me on my journey for my first leadership position. And so, like I said, it just, that's like, that's having HR at the table. And so, and right then, that's also set me on my journey, Tina-Marie, about that. That's what I specialize in, is elevating people from tactical thinking to strategic leadership and connecting those dots, giving that ladder, giving that roadmap on how to do that, because that's what's going to get HR a seat at the table. You don't get it because you're head of HR. You get it because you're adding strategic value. And so a lot happened there. Like I said, very, very influential at really, in one instance, HR was not great, but in another instance, they were the greatest things that ever happened to me in my life. And so, and really started me on the journey that now that's what I do for a living. It's really sort of preach the tactical to strategic. And so we need those strategic HR leaders at the table. Sorry, obviously I'm very passionate about this. Like I just think companies can't succeed. They can't succeed in the long run if you don't have a people strategy and have a strong HR at that table with you. I think it's going to be very, very challenging for you to succeed in the long haul.
So that was a pretty big defining moment for you
Oh
earlier
gosh,
in your
I'm telling you, I'm
career.
still talking about it, right? Like
Yeah.
it was yesterday.
So, and that was one moment. My next question would be if there was one moment, which the one you just described could be that defining moment that shaped your career or had the most impact or influence. Can you think of any other situations or any other moments that
Oh,
really had that
absolutely.
catalyst for you?
Absolutely. So the first company that I helped to found, IAC, my boss he's the CEO of the organization. He treated employees as disposable commodities. And he believed in a turnover after a year or 18 months because he believed that you got the best out of people in that first year to 18 months, maybe 2 years. And they were commodities. And I thought to myself right then, not on my watch. The turnover rate at that organization was horrific, except for my team, because I let crazy stop with me as the leader, and we didn't have HR. Like, we did not have HR because he didn't really believe in that. And yet I figured out great HR practices from the companies that we went out and acquired and sort of gobbled up, and eventually was able to get a CHRO working for him. And so on the table, on the board, like a really hardcore, like a hardcore person who really knew what was going on, because he was affecting so many people, thousands and thousands of people, that his leadership was affecting. And so by having a really strong, very knowledgeable, very like a real subject matter expert at the table, was able to temper that and make sure that, again, sort of crazy stopped there, and that it didn't infiltrate down into all of these thousands of leaders or thousands of employees who worked for him. And again, it's about, to me, I walked out of this saying HR is really a leadership strategy. It's not a revolving door of people. HR is really a strategy that you take in order to grow the company, even in spite of having maybe a CEO who doesn't have that people first mentality. And that's how somebody, and by the way, the guy's brilliant. I mean, the guy is absolutely brilliant. And it's just coming in and really having that person who can strategize and take that knowledge of how to grow, that innate ability to grow a company, and translate that into the day-to-day, to where you've got people working on a mission almost in spite of the CEO. So sorry, it's a long-winded answer, and I'm sort of, I'm still under an NDA, so I got to be careful with names, but but I just, like I said, I've had so many moments where HR has been so powerful and just added so much value that to be honest, it was more hard, Tina-Marie, to narrow it down to what was most impactful, because there's so many moments that have been impactful, both for me as an individual, as for me as a leader, and for organizations as well to lead. So like I said, it was an easy questions to answer, because I have so many great stories about that involve HR.
And when you have a CEO that is, I'm going to say it's short-sighted. So
Yep.
you have that in the aspect of, I'm making a decision in the now, and I'm not thinking about how my decision may impact things in the future and strategy. That's where I think we can immerse ourselves and help them understand. That's great. So our turnover let's think about how it impacts our brand strategy. Let's think how it impacts knowledge retention. Let's think how it impacts our reputation. Or succession planning. If nobody's around for 18 months and nobody wants to work for a toxic leader, the data tells a lot. And sometimes with those types of situations, that's where HR can come in with a strong voice and
Agreed.
Just here.
Yep.
Let's talk about it.
Turning that data into a story that makes sense for the listener.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Love it. Okay, so we actually asked three questions, and
I'm ready.
And you're ready for that third question. So, and I'm going to spin in a little bit with you, because again, your insight in the way that you help us approach all things people is been such impactful to our community. And I know you're an author, you're a keynote speaker, and you're a mentor and advocate. And I will say, for anybody that's looking for some virtual management training, that Val has cohorts, and I have sent people that way when they're with other people to learn how to be a people leader, because that's her gift. She helps leaders better, and managers, especially middle managers, be better stewards of people, and using her insight and her power for good. So if you ever need that, I'm going to say check out Val Grubb and Associates. And I will say I have sent people and can tell you that is a positive testimonial. But all things said, Val, if there's something that you've heard, a podcast, a book, or something that you have just said, wow, this has changed my perspective on X, that is a must listen to or read. And it could be nonfiction, fiction, whatever. Tell us what that is. Can you share something that we should check out?
Absolutely. I books that I recommend, and I also follow these folks on LinkedIn. So I think one thing I think has been revolutionary for my leadership, my people leadership journey, is emotional intelligence. Like I am telling you, I just feel like the work, it's a never-ending battle, if you will, of managing emotions, because we're just human. And I have found the stuff by Daniel Goleman to be just really extraordinary. So I follow him on LinkedIn. I've totally drank the Kool-Aid. I've read the books, I've done the tests, I've done the assessments, I've done everything, because I feel like emotional intelligence has really made me a better leader and a better HR and all of those things. So that is certainly, if you've not spent a lot of time with emotional intelligence, now's the time to jump on the EQ bandwagon. I also love a guy, follow him on LinkedIn as well, Michael Watkins. He's written one of my favorite books, which is The First 90 Days. And that is about how leaders, what you should do as a leader when you walk in those first 90 days, and how you take advantage of that to really walk out of that time period being the strongest leader that you can. And he also has another book that's fairly recent, like I think it was last year, called The 6 Disciplines of Strategic Thinking. And I find it to be I found it to be just an extraordinary book. The tagline on it's leading your organization into the future. And I find this to be an outstanding book that really comes in and helps to define what strategy is and then how you can apply that. And so I follow him I'm connected to him on LinkedIn and follow him on LinkedIn. And then last two books I'll say. So as an HR professional, one of the things that should be at the top of your list is being able to understand your company's financials, being able to look at a balance sheet, being able to look at a P&L, look at a statement of cash flows, and make people decisions based on ROI, based on how its effect on the bottom line. And there are 2 books that I always recommend. One's an oldie. Actually, I think they're both old. But one is HBR, Harvard Business Review, or Harvard Business Press has a book, Finance, Budgeting and Finance for HR Professionals. It's an outstanding resource that's sort of a primer. And then the next book I would recommend is Financial Intelligence, A Manager's Guide to Knowing What the Numbers Really Mean. And it's Karen Berman, and she's got somebody else who writes it with her. I don't know them, but I follow her. I can't remember who her co-author is, but I follow her on LinkedIn. And I find those 2 resources to be outstanding. And to me, if you want that seat at the table, you got to earn it. And one of the ways that you do that is that you're able to speak financiese. And so these 2 books can really, really make a difference, whether you're in HR or wherever you're at, but they will, to be that CHRO, to be that person who really contributes to the strategic growth of your organization, it does come down to money. Yes, people first, but I need you to connect the people with the money. And these books will help with that. So that's what I would certainly, those are certainly three resources that I always highly tout as being truly kind of lifesavers for me.
Well, we are so grateful to have had this conversation with you, and those resources are definitely much needed. So there's going to be a slide for you how to connect with Val. And again, sign up. She has a great newsletter that you can get on her email distribution list, which I do read and share with other managers, as well as being an author. And you need to check her out on a stage near you. And then I'll have a slide with all information on the book she mentioned. So Val, thank you
Perfect.
so much for making our HR day better. And it was an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you.
I could not agree more, Tina-Marie, and I'm looking forward to Michigan in 2027.
Maybe a little teaser out there. We're putting it in the universe.
Exactly. We're putting it out there. I like it.